The scream shattered the humid summer air like glass breaking underfoot. I bolted from the patio, my heart seizing, spotting my 8-year-old daughter, Ella, floating face down near the dock, her small body limp in the water. My in-laws, my late wife's family, the Prestons, stood there on the shore, arms crossed, faces blank as stone. Claudia Preston, the iron-fisted matriarch, leaned close to her son, Nathan, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. She should have listened when we told her not to talk back. Rage, hot and blinding, boiled in my chest, but primal fear won. I dove in, the cold water a violent slap. I grabbed Ella, hauled her to the grass, her lips tinted a sickening blue, her chest terrifyingly still. I started CPR, pressing hard, my mind a blank loop of 1, 2, 3. "Come on, kiddo, fight," I muttered through gritted teeth. The Prestons didn't move, didn't call for help, just watched like it was some twisted matinee. Claudia's eyes gleamed with something dark, satisfied. Then, tires screeched, my brother Mark burst from his truck, phone already to his ear, yelling for an ambulance. Sirens wailed in the distance as Mark's glare locked on the Prestons. "What the hell did you do?" he snarled. Claudia smiled thinly. "It was an accident, dear. If you're watching this, subscribe, like, and let me know where you're watching from." I paced the hospital waiting room like a trapped animal, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, mocking my helplessness. The doctor finally emerged, his face grim. "She's stable, but it was close. Drowning can leave scars, we'll know more when she wakes." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, then faced the cops outside Ella's room. "She slipped off the dock," I lied, my voice steady but my gut twisting into knots. The Prestons hovered nearby, Claudia's lips curling into a smug, knowing curve. She knew I was covering for them. She knew I was protecting Ella from a messy investigation that could tear our fragile life apart, a fight they, with their money, would inevitably win. Nathan nodded along, his fake concern as thin as paper. But Mark pulled me aside in the hallway, his eyes burning. "I saw the marks on her arms, Wilson. Bruises like someone grabbed her hard." I shook my head, avoiding his gaze. "We can't prove it. They own judges, cops. Half this town bows to their money." Mark's jaw set. "Then why lie? You're letting them walk." I glanced at Ella through the window, tubes snaking from her tiny arms. "For her. Stirring this up could make it worse." But Mark leaned in, his voice low and fierce. "If you won't fight them, I will." Mark's call came at dawn, his voice crackling with an urgency that bypassed my exhaustion. "Meet me at the old diner now." I slipped out of the hospital, leaving Ella sleeping under the nurse's watch, my mind racing. At the booth, Mark already had coffee waiting, but his eyes were bloodshot. "I promise, Wilson, I'll uncover what really happened to her." I shook my head, rubbing my temples. "Mark, please. Drop it. They'll crush us. They own half this town." His eyes hardened. "Then we burn the other half." I hesitated, memories of our childhood flashing, Mark always the fighter, me the cautious one, especially since losing my wife, Sarah. "We can't win," I whispered. He slammed his fist lightly on the table. "We can't lose," he countered. "No more hiding." His words ignited something in me, a spark of resolve buried under years of grief. We shook on it, a pact sealed in stale coffee and desperation. As we left, I went back to the hospital, but Mark's grip tightened on his truck's steering wheel. "I'm going back there tonight," he said. "They have cameras." I watched him drive into the rising sun, but shadows clung to him. I knew, with chilling certainty, that Mark would sneak back to the Preston estate that night. I couldn't sleep. I just sat by Ella's bedside, watching her breathe. My phone buzzed hours later, a text from Mark, "Got something. Meet me. Back parking lot." I found him leaning against his truck, hands shaking, mud on his boots. You went, I breathed. He nodded, pulling a small memory card from his pocket. I crept toward the lake house. Targeted an old security camera bolted to the dock. Its lens was cracked, but the memory slot was intact. He described kneeling in the mud, prying it open, fingers slick with sweat. He yanked the drive free. But as I turned, he continued, his voice low, Nathan was there. Flashlight beam pinning me. My heart hammered. What happened? He growled, what the hell are you doing here? I lied, said you sent me to check the property. He didn't buy it. He lunged. Mark showed me the tear in his jacket. I bolted, dodged through the bushes, his shouts echoing. Made it to the truck just as he grabbed the handle. He plugged the drive into a laptop in his cab. Footage rolled, showing the lake that afternoon. But chunks were missing. Deleted clean. Someone got here first. Mark escaped, but he realized someone else already wiped most of the footage clean. Back in Ella's room, the smell of antiseptic and fear clung to the air. I held her hand, her fingers cold and small in mine, as the nurse, Joan, adjusted her for. She's tough, Joan said softly, glancing at the door. But this, it's not right. I looked up, surprised by her tone. What do you mean? She leaned in, her voice a whisper. The Prestons? This isn't their first slip. I've seen kids come in from that estate with bruises, stories that don't add up. They always walk away clean. My blood ran cold, visions of Ella's blue lips flashing. Why tell me? She shrugged, her eyes sad. Because no one else will. I nodded, my mind spinning. As she left, my phone buzzed. An anonymous number. I opened the text, your brother is digging where he shouldn't. My pulse raced. Who knew? The Prestons? I deleted it, but dread settled like lead in my gut. I called Mark, voice urgent. Watch your back, they're on to us. He laughed bitterly. Good. Means we're close. But hanging up, I paced the sterile hall, wondering if silence had been safer after all. I checked my phone again. Another message from the same number, your brother is next if you keep digging. Mark was relentless. He met me in the hospital cafeteria, sliding a folder across the table. I dug into the Prestons all night. That lake house, it's got a history. I flipped through clippings, a missing persons file from 15 years back. Claudia's former daughter-in-law, drowned in that same lake, Mark muttered. The report screamed cover-up witnesses silent, case closed impossibly fast. I tracked the old sheriff to a rundown trailer park, Mark continued. The man, grizzled and wary, squinted at me. I held up the file. The truth about the Preston drowning. The sheriff's eyes widened, then he slammed the door. Get lost. I ain't talking. Mark leaned back, frustrated. But as I turned, the man whispered, they own everyone. Watch the water. My fear intensified. Mark, this is too dangerous. He just shook his head and left. His call came late that night, his voice tight. They're sending a message. What? My tires. Hissing flat in the driveway, slashed deep. My heart stopped. Get out of there. Too late, he breathed. I heard a distant shriek over the phone, his home alarm. Glass shattering. Back window. Someone's inside. The line went dead. That night, Mark's tires were slashed, and his home alarm tripped. The attack shifted. It came for me, not with violence, but with ink. My construction office buzzed with bad news. My foreman, Dave, met me at the door, his face pale. Contracts. Cancelled overnight. 3 of them. He handed me a letter from the city inspector. False claims of shoddy work, whispers of fraud audits. It's the Prestons, I said, the words tasting like ash. I slammed the desk, watching my livelihood, the one I'd built for Ella, crumble like dry dirt. Clients I'd built trusts with for years backed out, fearing backlash. They own half the banks, I groaned to Mark on the phone. I'm ruined. He paused, then, give me a day. He called back hours later, his voice grim. Hacking into public records, I traced the complaints. The emails demanding the audit? They came from a lawyer tied directly to Claudia's firm. Timestamps matched the day after the lake incident. It's a frame job, I whispered, staring at the proof he forwarded. They were hitting me where it hurt, trying to shut us down. My crew depended on me, Ella needed stability. We fight back, I finally said. But as I hung up, another blow landed, a subpoena for my taxes, riddled with planted errors. Mark had uncovered the lawyer's emails all traced to Claudia's legal firm. Mark's hands shook slightly as he hit play on his laptop. He'd been working for days on the corrupted fragments from the dock camera. I had to use 3 different recovery programs, he muttered. Pixels flickered like ghosts rising from the grave. The lake shimmered on screen, then horror unfolded. Nathan and Claudia. They cornered Ella on the dock, her small voice pleading. Don't talk back, Claudia hissed, shoving her. Nathan grabbed her arms, laughing as they pushed her in. Ella thrashed, then went still. The clip cut, but the truth burned itself onto my retinas. I watched it at Mark's motel room, tears streaming, a raw sound tearing from my throat. How could they? I choked. My own in-laws, twisted by some sadistic game. Mark paused the video, the image of their smiling faces frozen. Power, he said, his voice cold iron. They think they're untouchable. I buried my face in my hands, grief for my late wife mixing with a blinding rage. Had she known their darkness? We take this to the cops, I said, my voice thick. Mark shook his head. No. They'll bury it. The DA is their puppet. He closed the laptop. We're not going to the police. We're going to war. War. The word hung in the air. We relocated to a nondescript storage unit, the walls covered in charts. Mark and I began gathering dirt. We weren't looking for evidence for a trial, we were looking for leverage. Financial corruption, blackmail, offshore accounts. Mark, with his IT skills, dove into their servers while I used my old construction contacts to find zoning violations and bribes they'd paid. I struggled, torn between the need for vengeance and the terrifying fear of what they'd do if we failed. What if they came for Ella again? Then, the call came from the hospital. I rushed over. Ella's eyes fluttered open, her voice a tiny whisper. Daddy? I rushed to her side, hugging her gently, relief flooding me like warm light. You're safe, sweetie. But her next words froze my blood. I was bad. Grandma said she was teaching me to breathe underwater. Uncle Nathan held me down, it was a game. Her innocence twisted the knife deeper, she didn't see the cruelty. Mark stood by the door, his face dark. That's no game, he muttered. As we stepped out, my hands trembling, Ella's words echoed. Grandma said she was teaching me to breathe underwater. The Prestons moved faster than I could have imagined. While I was still reeling from Ella's words, a summons was delivered to the hospital. The courthouse loomed like a fortress 2 days later, Claudia's expensive lawyers swarming the steps. Emergency custody hearing, the notice read. They were claiming I was unfit, unstable, emotionally distressed, after the incident. My stomach knotted as the judge, a man I recognized from newspaper photos, Claudia's old golf buddy, banged the gavel. My lawyer, a public defender I'd scrambled to find, was railroaded. Given the father's erratic behavior and the child's recent trauma, the judge ruled, his voice bored, temporary guardianship is granted to the Prestons. Ella's eyes widened in terror from the chair beside me as a bailiff moved toward her. "Daddy," she cried, reaching for me. I lunged, but guards blocked me. Claudia smirked from the front bench. "We'll take good care of her, Wilson." Mark pulled me outside, his face etched with fury. "This is war now," he snarled. "We get her back, our way." That night, I stared at the empty house, walls closing in. The court had granted temporary custody to the Prestons. "We're not waiting for appeals," Mark said, tossing a bundle onto my table. It was a maintenance uniform. "They're moving her to the estate today." "You're the driver." "I'm the plumber." The next day, I sat in a nondescript van down the street, my heart pounding a hole in my chest. Mark adjusted the fake mustache in the rearview mirror, his toolbox on the seat. "Stay in the truck. Keep the engine running." He strode in, flashing a fake badge. Inside, he slipped to Ella's room. He told me later she looked up, eyes lighting. "Uncle Mark." He shushed her, scooping her into a large laundry cart. "We're going home, kiddo." He wheeled her out, dodging maids, sweat beading on his forehead. At the gate, a guard just nodded. "Clear." He burst out the side door, pushing the cart, and we bundled Ella into the van. We sped away, Ella giggling in the back. That was fun. But miles down the road, a dark red sedan appeared in the mirror, tailing close. "Hold on," Mark muttered, swerving onto a dirt path. The car followed, headlights glaring. We hit the woods, branches scraping the van. "Who is it?" I yelled. Mark floored it, finally losing them in the trees as we pulled up to our old family cabin, hidden deep. A red car followed us into the woods. Smoke curled from the cabin fireplace as Mark ushered in an older woman, her face lined with years of secrets. "Janet," Mark introduced her. She was the Prestons' housekeeper for 20 years. "I couldn't stay silent anymore," Janet said, her voice trembling. We sat around the table, Ella asleep in the next room. Claudia, she changed after her husband died mysteriously all those years ago. She started family loyalty lessons. She'd gather the kids by the lake, make them prove their obedience. Harsh games. Punishments. My skin crawled. "Like with Ella?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Janet nodded. "Worse. I saw the bruises, heard the screams. She calls it toughening them up. She believes it builds strength, but it's just broken so many." Mark leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Janet, do you have proof?" She fumbled in her purse and pulled out an old, dusty USB drive. "I copied this from the main computer before they fired me. I was too scared to use it, until now." I looked at the label, scrawled in pen. Janet handed it to us. Lake Ritual 2005. The USB footage played on loop, chilling the cabin air. We plugged it into Mark's laptop, the grainy video flickering to life. A younger Claudia, severe and commanding, barked orders at a group of teens by the lake. "Hold her down. Teach her respect." They obeyed, two boys forcing a girl, maybe 16, under the water until she thrashed, begging. Claudia laughed. "Good. Loyalty or sink." I had to look away, nausea rising. "This is madness," I whispered. Mark pointed, pausing the frame on the struggling girl. "Look. The necklace on the girl." It was a simple silver chain, with a small, etched heart pendant. My breath caught in my throat, I'd seen it. Claudia gave Ella the same one. For her last birthday. Horror, cold and complete, sank in. It wasn't just a gift. It was an heirloom, a twisted symbol of a curse passed down. "It's a ritual," Mark said, his voice flat. "They've been doing this for generations." We pieced it together, drownings disguised as accidents, survivors bound by fear. My wife Sarah's death flashed in my mind, car veered into water. Coincidence? I went into Ella's room, where she slept, clutching the very same necklace. He recognized the girl's necklace. It's the same one Claudia gave Ella on her last birthday. We can't just hold this, Mark said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. We can't win in court, so we win in public. He hit send, uploading anonymous snippets of the ritual video to local news forums and social media. Let the public decide. By morning, outrage exploded. Shares, comments, local news anchors demanding answers. Monsters, was the kindest word used. Claudia, unflappable, held a press conference on her manicured lawn, her face a mask of composed indignation. This is a disgusting AI fakery, she announced. Enemies of my family are smearing our name with manipulated videos. But the doubt spread. Reporters started digging. The Preston stock dipped, partners began pulling out. Claudia's empire finally had a crack. We watched the chaos unfold from the cabin, Ella playing outside, innocent of the storm we'd unleashed. Then Mark's phone rang, a private number. He put it on speaker. A gravelly voice. This is Preston Security. We know you have the rest. We can end your brother quietly. Drop it. Mark hung up, smirking. They're rattled. The Preston security chief had called Mark, threatening, we can end your brother quietly. The threat shows they're desperate, Mark said. Time to set the trap. He used a burner email to plant fake correspondence, making it look like he'd gone rogue, suggesting he'd sell the full files including the new footage of Ella, to a national reporter for cash. Nathan's the hothead. Claudia will send him to handle it. We waited in a dusty, abandoned warehouse Mark rented, hidden microcameras rolling. Footsteps echoed in the cavernous space. Nathan arrived, just as Mark predicted, gun glinting in the dim light. Hand over the drive, he demanded. Mark feigned fear. I just want the money, man. You get nothing, Nathan sneered, stepping into the light. Why'd you push Ella? She's just a kid, Mark asked, his voice shaking just enough. Nathan laughed. She needed a lesson like Mom taught us. They all do. The confession poured out, the rituals, the cover-ups. She just wouldn't shut up. The cameras caught it all. Nathan lunged, but Mark, faster, dodged and tackled him. As they wrestled, sirens blared. We'd tipped an honest cop Mark knew from his old security days. Nathan was cuffed, spitting threats. Mark's hidden cameras caught Nathan confessing to the lake assault. This time, we had him. The new footage, the confession, it was undeniable. I walked into the DA's office, my heart pounding with triumph. I have evidence. Nathan Preston, confessing to the assault on my daughter. I slammed the drive on his desk. Arrest him. The DA, a slick man named Harris, watched the footage, his face blank. Then he shook his head. Inadmissible. Chain of custody issues. You obtained this illegally. It's fruit of the poisonous tree. Are you kidding me? Mark exploded from the chair next to me. He confessed. You're in their pocket. The DA smiled thinly. Watch your tone, Mr. Reed. Or I'll have you removed. Outside, shaking with rage, I slumped against the wall. He's right. It's illegal. He's not right, Mark snarled, already typing on his phone. He's compromised. It took him an hour. He pulled up public records. Harris. His wife. Look at her maiden name. My blood chilled. He was married to Claudia's sister. Corruption to the core, Mark whispered. We needed a new plan, to go higher. But the web was tighter than we knew. He had uncovered that the DA was married to Claudia's sister. We were running out of options. We returned to my house, the one the bank was foreclosing on, to grab some old files. Mark was checking the perimeter, I was grabbing a box. "Wilson, get out!" Mark screamed. I didn't hesitate. I dove from the porch just as the explosion lit the night sky. My truck erupted in a fireball, shrapnel tearing through the front of my house. The shockwave threw me against the neighbor's fence. I dove behind a wall, ears ringing, skin singed. "Wilson!" Mark yelled, pulling me clear. Fire crews arrived, but the damage was done, the house gutted, the truck a skeleton. They knew we were here, I gasped. But a colder fear gripped me. Ella. We raced back to the cabin, pushing the rental car to its limit. The door was splintered open. The cabin was empty. "No," I whispered, sifting the wreckage of our safe house. Then I saw it, lying on Ella's empty cot. A silver bracelet I'd given her. Planted like a taunt. "She's gone," I choked. They took her again. Panic clawed at me, visions of the lake ritual, of Claudia's cold smile. Inside the wreckage, I found a silver bracelet, Ella's. "She's missing again." "They're stupid," Mark muttered, his face grim as he tracked the burner phone he'd planted in Ella's jacket. "They didn't find it." The phone pings led to an abandoned boathouse on the far side of the lake, creaking in the rising wind. We burst in, guns drawn. Mark had insisted we arm ourselves after the bombing. The place was empty, but they'd been here. Ropes dangled from the rafters. Rolls of duct tape lay scattered. And in the corner, Ella's small backpack, tossed aside. "They were here," Mark said, his voice raw. A laptop sat on a rusted barrel, its screen dark. As we approached, it booted automatically. Claudia's face filled the screen, her smile serene, terrifying. "Hello, Wilson. You and Mark have been very naughty." The video was pre-recorded, but her eyes seemed to see me. "You wanted proof? You wanted to see our traditions? It's time to finish her lesson." The video cut to a new feed live. Ella, bound and gagged, in a small boat, the water dark around her. "Let's finish her lesson," Claudia's voice purred again. Terror, absolute and paralyzing, gripped me. We had to move. Thunder cracked overhead as the sky opened up. Rain lashed the lake, turning the waves black and churning. We grabbed an old fishing boat tied to the dock and gunned the engine. "They're still on the water," Mark yelled over the wind, tracking the phone. "Where?" I screamed, my flashlight beam cutting through the fog. "There." He pointed. A small boat bobbed in the violent waves, Nathan and Claudia aboard, Ella between them. We pulled alongside, our boat slamming into theirs. Claudia turned, her hair plastered to her face, eyes wild. She held a gun to Ella's head. "You shouldn't have interfered, Wilson," she shrieked over the storm. "I tried to warn you." "Let her go, Claudia," I begged. "It's over." She laughed, a high, thin sound lost in the thunder. Lightning flashed, illuminating her mad grin. "She's part of the family now. It's her final lesson. She'll float better this time." Mark didn't wait. He dove into the chaotic, black water just as Claudia turned and fired, bullets splashing inches from where he'd vanished. "No!" I roared. Fueled by adrenaline and pure rage, I rammed our small boat directly into theirs, wood splintering. The impact sent Nathan tumbling overboard, thrashing and screaming. The jolt knocked Claudia off balance, and in the chaos, Ella slipped from her grasp, plunging under the waves. History's cruel, agonizing repeat. I lunged for Claudia, but Mark surfaced, gasping. He spotted Ella, grabbing her, pulling her limp body toward our damaged boat. I hauled her in, starting compressions immediately, just like that first day. "Breathe, Ella, breathe." I yelled. Behind me, Claudia's boat, damaged from the impact, capsized. She surfaced, screaming, her eyes locking with mine in the flashing lightning. Then a wave hit, and she vanished beneath the waves, her screams lost in the thunder. We gasped on the shore, Ella coughing up water, alive. But as I looked back at the storm-tossed lake, I knew a chilling truth. Mark had dragged her out, gasping, as Claudia disappeared beneath the waves. Weeks passed. The police dragged the lake for days, but there was no body. The current in the storm, the sheriff said, shrugging. She's gone. With Claudia missing and presumed dead, her empire crumbled. Nathan, pulled sputtering from the lake that night, confessed to everything: the rituals, the assault on Ella, the financial crimes, hoping for a lighter sentence. Relief washed over us, fragile as new ice. We moved to a new town, trying to piece our lives back together. Ella was in therapy, and the nightmares were slowly fading. We were safe. It was over. Then, the postcard arrived. It was a simple, glossy photo of the Preston Lake, serene and blue. I flipped it over. 3 words and 2 initials, written in elegant, familiar cursive. The lake whispers. CP. My blood ran cold. She was alive. The police had found no trace of Claudia's body. Weeks later, I received a lake postcard signed CP. She planned this, Mark said, his face pale as he showed me his laptop screen. Bank records. She withdrew millions from an offshore account 2 days before the showdown on the lake. She had an escape plan. The fragile peace shattered. Paranoia became our new shadow. Every snapped twig, every car that slowed, felt like her. Then the calls started. Blocked numbers, ringing my phone in the dead of night. When I answered, there was only silence, then the faint sound of distorted breathing. Stop calling. I'd yell, but they kept coming. Mark tried to trace them, but they were bounced through a dozen proxies. We moved Ella to a different school, trying to stay 1 step ahead of a ghost. But she wasn't a ghost. A manila envelope appeared on my doorstep. No note. Inside, a photo. Ella, playing in the new park, taken with a long lens. Taken that morning. She was watching us. A photo arrived, Ella playing in the park, taken that morning. She's sloppy, Mark said, finally isolating a signal. The calls. They're routing through a cell tower in a small coastal town, 50 miles away. She's close, I whispered, the dread palpable. Then we finish this, Mark said. No more running. We devised a plan. We couldn't go to the compromised police. We had to draw her out. We leaked our location, making it seem like we were panicked, staying at a specific motel. Then we set up a sting. We went to a public cafe in that town, a place we'd mentioned in a fake phone call. Mark had hidden cameras in his glasses. I sat with Ella, pretending to read, my heart hammering. Mark watched from a nearby table. Hours passed. Nothing. Then, Mark's voice came through my earpiece. Don't look now. Gray hat, sunglasses, reading a paper. By the window. I glanced. An older woman. It was her. Disguised, but the cold arrogance was unmistakable. Claudia appeared in disguise at a cafe, alive and watching Ella from afar. I grabbed Ella's hand. Ice cream time, sweetie. My voice was shaking as I walked her quickly back to our car, locking the doors. Stay down, I whispered. On my phone, I watched the feed from Mark's glasses. He waited, then followed Claudia as she turned down a quiet, narrow alley. He stepped out. It's over, Claudia. She didn't look surprised. She turned, that thin smile playing on her lips. Mark. Always the protector. You're done, he said. She opened her purse. Am I? Everyone has a price. Name yours. Walk away. Let me have my granddaughter. You and Wilson can live comfortably. She's not your property, Mark spat. Claudia's smile vanished. You're making a mistake. The police are on their way, he bluffed. She laughed, a cold, sharp sound. You think they can hold me? She took a step closer, her eyes glittering with the same madness I saw on the lake. Such a shame. You should have taken the money. He refused. She smirked, her voice dropping to a predator's whisper. Then I'll teach you how to breathe underwater. She lunged, but Mark was ready. The feed on my phone went chaotic, shouting, a struggle, the sound of a siren. I'd called myself, finally getting through to the state police. But she was gone. She slipped past him in the chaos, vanishing into the night. We lived in terror for another week. Every day was a nightmare, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then the call came. Mr. Reed, this is Sergeant Miller, State Police. We found a body. A week later, police dredged the lake. This time, Claudia's body was found for real. She'd apparently returned to the estate, perhaps to retrieve money, and slipped near the dock in the rain. Poetic justice. Mark and I attended her unmarked burial. No one else came. As we left, finally, truly free, I held Ella's hand. We walked past the water, calm and serene in the sunlight. Ella stopped, pointing to ripples forming near the shore. Her voice was a small, quiet whisper. Uncle Mark, the lake's whispering again.